Islam, and greetings. Princeanaelbey, Divine Prince, and Supreme Grand Sheikh of the Divine Theocracy of the Moorish Science Temple of America through Temple Alhambra. I pray all is well with everyone, and that you have been good and kind to one another. And I also pray that you're living the best life that you have. This session is also for the young people. In my first video exclusively to you, I warned you of the fact that you are in a war. You just don't know it. And that is why it's incumbent on you to join us as we make noise so that the United States of America Corporation Company can produce the organic Constitution for the United States. I think I explained to you in the last video that my Uncle Muhammad, he signed that document the same year that he signed the treaty. Both documents were signed in 1786. So despite what you've been miseducated to about the Constitution for the United States, well, of course, you were never educated to that. They hid it from you long before you got here. So you were never to know about it. And to not know anything about that means not knowing anything that you have by right. And that's why it's imperative that you show up on Saturday, because I have a special message for you and those of your phylum. I have a special message for you. And speaking of special messages to you, there are some things that have been missing in your life. And as I explained in the previous video, nothing you can do about that now. Because time goes forward, not backwards. And you can't afford to go backwards. Because ultimately, what you are was a part of a plan that was devised, engineered, and executed in the 1950s and the 1960s. I was there when social workers would go to one of my friend's mother's house and interrogate her like she was a suspect. It was horrible. And what's even worse now, if you're one of the young people who are still in high school, when they recommend that you go see someone because, you're a behavior problem, they're going to send you to an LCSW. An LCSW is a licensed clinical social worker. Now, the problem that I have with LCSWs is this, and I've made no secret throughout the profession or anywhere I have ever been, and in places where I have worked as a doctor, I have never made it a secret that I don't have much regard for LCSWs. And here's why. It is because of the tactics that were used by the social workers in the beginning of this program. that struck fear and uh, anxiety in entire families when she would knock on the door, especially if one of the kids had been leaning out the window and saw her turn up into the building. And these are the people who created. They are partially responsible for this urban psychosis that you're going through. Now, when they recommend you to go see somebody or check that, I believe the term they use today is referral. When they refer you to someone so that you can seek help, they refer you to LCSWs, don't they? And here's the problem I have with that. The very people who are partially responsible for this urban psychosis are the very people that you send the victims of it to. To do what? Straighten them out? To fix them? The program never called for fixing them, only messing up entire generations of people. And unfortunately, you young people fell into that. Yes, it was part of the plan to disenfranchise the Asiatic here, and there was no better way to do that than to shut down industry here, considering that a majority of the Asiatic men in America, they barely got out of grammar school. We used to listen to those old boys talk about how they had to quit school in the 4th and 5th grade to go to work. Those are the men who trained us. Those are the men who trained us. And we listened to those old boys. And then, if we were conscious enough, we would recognize just how good we had it because of them. Because of them. And what the authors of this plan knew was if industry was shut down, all of these men would be thrown out of work. I need you to understand something. Now, during this time, it was President Johnson's War on Poverty, which began all of this. His war on poverty meant crippling the Asiatic people and making them dependent on the United States for generations. Now, this is what happened. What happened was, in the early 60s, I know here in Egypt, they built high-rise temporary housing. That's how they started out. They were temporary housing for families to, who were really down and they needed a place to stay and they had kids. So they built the projects. Now the project started out as temporary housing. And as the economy got worse, now mind you, we're in the 1960s now. We're in the early part of the 1960s. We are after 1963, after they murdered Kennedy. All right, around 1964, President Johnson's War on Poverty. The War on Poverty was actually a war on you, because no one else suffered as badly as the Asiatic in Johnson's War on Poverty. You still don't think that the United States is at war with you. You are America. You are an American national, unless you choose to be a United States citizen. And again, the United States is not America. But back to your story. All of this began with that. Now I'm going to link some things together for you so that you can see how it all fits and how you fit into it. So pay attention, please. Now that the Asiatic was absolutely chronic about this brand new welfare system, thing is, when it was instituted, those families in the projects that had fathers, well, the woman was given an ultimatum. If you want your children to eat, your husband can't be in the home with you. You can't have a man in the home. And what that did was that fostered such a ridiculously false sense of bravado in the Asiatic woman throughout the generations, to the point where she would walk around shouting shamelessly, "I don't need no man. I can take care of my kids by myself." You didn't have to have the children, and you would have been able to have a life. Those were options that were open to you as well. Because now the children are suffering. I'm going to help you children as much as I can get out from under everything that you are under, because you don't even know the weight that is on you. So after the welfare state kicked in, you had no father in the home. And in those families where the father used to be, more than likely, they had daughters. Well, let's see. You got 16 floors. How many units on a ramp? My goodness, I forgot. But at any rate, chances are he had daughters, at least one. Well, what with mama having to now suffer the indignity of having to live differently and adjust to that different way of living, hand to mouth every month, just so that her children could go to school. And yes, they even gave her cash so that she could buy the children some clothes and stuff. Yeah, she had to adjust. And then time goes by. The father who was kicked out, his daughter was simply growing older. She didn't have him there to guide her. And what do you know? She's in the 9th grade and she's pregnant. Well, because her mother had no marketable skills, plus she was on the welfare. In the early days when it first came out, it was called ADC, Aid to Dependent Children. Well, some of my, little friends at school, once they learned that, James's family was on the welfare, then they would tease, because children are really cruel. They really are. Really, truly cruel. And they used to tease him. Your mama on ADC. Yeah, after daddy cut out. So, while the kids got teased because of Johnson's war on poverty. Well, now let's jump forward, maybe 20 years or so. Well, now we're in the 1980s. Those same projects that were built in the early 60s, they are now a haven for the latest drug of choice, which is crack cocaine. Well, it didn't matter which building you went into on State Street. There were vendors aplenty in those same buildings. Now remember, we're 20 years ahead. How many generations of those same unwed pregnant girls got apartments in those projects? And they dragged their children up there. Do not misconstrue. I got some hellacious partners who came out of the projects. And besides, I'm a 39th Street boy. I come off 39th Street. And so the fact of the matter is, all of this was planned before you got here. And your birther and her birther and her birther before her, they were all part of it. They were supposed to be. It was planned. And now the thing that is planned for you children is your planned obsolescence through what will be described to you as law. And that is that Constitution of the United States. And it is a worthless rag. It means nothing. It is what they trotted out to replace the organic, original Constitution for the United States. The one that has Uncle Muhammad's signature on it, which was signed in 1786. You all need that document if you intend to have any kind of a civilized life. You all need that document. You need that document. Now let's get back to why and how you came to be. What the world sees and the images that the United States shows the world about you. So we had the social worker unnerving your entire family. All right, we're 20 years ahead. And now, that little girl, whose father had to get out, now her daughters got children. They all live in the same building as their mama. This family did. Sometimes the family spread over, several buildings. Some may even be in other projects in another part of town. But the point is, they were designed for you and your people by people who are not you. And they are not even American. They're not even American. And that Constitution for the United States, that is your ticket to freedom. Because you see, the United States cannot violate that Constitution, in part or in total. It cannot do it. And that is partially why they're glad that when they murdered old Honest Abe, they went to that back room, what was it, 7 years later, and drafted up that bogus document, the Constitution of the United States. Oh, by the way, that's another way that you can tell the organic Constitution from the fake Constitution. The organic Constitution will read the Constitution for the United States. The Constitution, which was drafted up after they murdered Lincoln, was written up and drafted and forced on the people in 1871. That's, kind of 100 years afterwards, isn't it? Something smells there. But at any rate, that is another way you can tell the difference between the two. The Constitution for the United States, that has in it for you, young people, your birthrights. Because your ancient ancestors left them for you in that document. They were using signs and symbols. And they also used the fourth degree. which is language. Now, so you've got a couple of generations now living in the projects that are project bound. Now, all they know for a couple of generations now is abject poverty, violence, a disdain, if not an outright hatred toward one another. And all of this was known before those buildings went up. Because you see, at around 1946 or 1947, an experiment was done by the U.S. Army. And this experiment consisted of rats in high-rise boxes or units. And they were stacked on top of one another, and they were assured of a limited food supply so that they could watch the reaction when the resources got down to just a little bit. They learned a lot about people from watching those rats in those projects they built for them. They knew exactly what was going to happen. They knew exactly what was going to happen. Silent weapons for silent wars. You are under attack. You are under attack. And you must know this. You have got to join us on Saturday, February 15th, 1 o'clock, on the steps of the Museum of Science and Industry. You've got to be there. You have got to be there. Your generation must be represented. Your generation must be represented. And Temple Alhambra does not care about what color your skin is when you look in the mirror, because it ain't about that. It ain't about that. In order to set things aright, you must destroy what is there. And where the Constitution is concerned, if you want to destroy the tyranny that has crossed this land like a plague, make the politicians produce the organic Constitution for the United States. Let me finish telling you what else they've done to you. As I told you in a previous video, your style of dress, it was given to you. You had infiltrators. You had infiltrators. Those infiltrators also have ties to clothing manufacturers. What, do you think those pants they sell you with no waistline is an accident? No, you are wearing what they want you to wear. Because what they know is your generation has no sense of style. They would rather have you walking around looking like dressed like organ grinder monkeys. The only thing missing is the organ grinder. Because what they know is NBA. Niggas buy anything. This they know. So they got you to wear baggy pants, oversized t-shirt. I've discussed this before. And you wore that get-up. And as I explained to you, that was your urban warfare uniform. That's your uniform. Now your uniform has changed. But you see, while you are in uniform, you are asking to be stopped and detained by policy enforcers. And here's why. In the 1980s, When your uniform came out, they began profiling you. They were really overt about it. They even had fake news stories about young black men claimed they were being profiled. They wanted the word and the term to stick in your head, because what they knew was you weren't going to hold on to much else. And so they fed you a trigger word, which was profile. And boy, didn't they use it. I was profiled. I wasn't doing nothing. I was walking down the street. I was profiled. I was profiled. Well, there was one sure way to ensure that you never get stopped because you were profiled again. How about stop wearing the uniform? If you don't fit the profile, you can hardly be treated like a profile character. If you don't fit the profile of the young urban gorilla, there's no reason for anybody to bother you. But if you look like all of the rest of your phylum, walking around with your pants on the ground, you fit the profile of the young black urban terrorist. And I already told you, this war on terror is a war on you. You are the terrorist where the United States is concerned. You don't have time to wallow in the foolishness that you call life anymore, because there are those who are planning to end it. The only question you have to ask yourself is if you're going to let them. That's the only question you have to ask yourself. So, now that you fit the profile and you complain about the police, you do all of these things. This is a pattern. This adds to your pathology. These are the things that you do. And these are part of the things that are a direct result of programs and situations that you were never a part of until you got here. Until you got here. Those billions in new rooms that they're building for you, some of them are federal, some of them are state. You know why they build them? They build it because what they knew was the biggest threat to United States society would be the young urban black and Latino male. This is what they knew. They already had it figured out. And then your Bertha, she goes off with Dirty Dick Dan, gets knocked up with you. She ain't got no education. She ain't got no job. She's got no way to care or support you. Why would she need to have a baby? And she's still one. Why would she need a baby? But you see, those who have crafted your doom, all they needed to know is that she would bring you here. That's all they needed to know. And the other guinea pigs who preceded your Bertha, they showed them that yes, their plan is working. And now you're here. And now you know the truth. I spoke about honor in the last video, but I know you all know nothing about that. The only word you all seem to know is the word respect. Don't know how many of you can spell it, but if you can, bully for you. I need to tell you something about respect, because none of you young people seem to have it. And I understand that. Honest, because you've never seen it. But here's the thing about respect. You have to give it before you can receive it. Nobody owes you respect because you're you. It's not how it goes. And if anybody ever told you differently, they lied to you again. You've been told a lot of lies. And if somebody told you that, they lied to you again. Respect is not owed to anyone. It is something that is earned. And I'm going to tell you this because I'll say it again. I'm here to help you. And I'm going to share this with you. The one way that you, as young people, can earn the respect of a lot of people is by becoming involved and having a say in how you live your life. It's only because of your silence that this war against you is so successful. You all don't have causes anymore. You just don't. They have just socked you down and softened you up to the point where you don't resist anything. And that is exactly what they want. Well, I want you to resist everything that is unjust and not right and is harmful to humanity. That is what I want you to resist, because it's here and more is coming. I don't want you children who don't know anything to just be caught by surprise when this, I will save that. I will save that. Because right now, I need you to know that I love you so much. I love you so much. I need for you to get involved for your own sake. And if you have children, whether you like the baby mama or not, that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Because this is the time, although you know nothing about responsibility, you will learn it here and you will learn it now. Because you have a responsible to the offspring you help bring here. You do have a responsibility to that child. If you cannot assist that child financially, you damn sure can ensure that child has a much better quality of life than it is suffering through now as a direct result of your doing nothing for it. This won't cost you nothing but some bus fare. Get involved for the sake of your posterity. Get involved for the sake of your posterity. Because your children are going to suffer if you stand by and do nothing. And you cannot even imagine the fate that awaits your children. You couldn't imagine it. Not in 100 years could you imagine the fate of your children if you do not take this stance and at least make an effort to correct the wrong that was done to you, your mama, your mama's mama, and your mama's mama's mama, and go on back for the next 100 years. If you do nothing to try to correct this, then evil will have won. The darkness will have won. Because this is an age-old battle of light against the dark. The only thing new are the players and the tactics. But it's an age-old battle. I cannot interfere. I cannot interfere, and I can have no feeling about it one way or the other about not being able to interfere. I just can't. But I can bring you messages. I spent a good deal of time this afternoon commanding my powers of discernment, commanding my third degree. And what I can tell you is this. Whatever currency, coinage, money, valuables, whatever it is you got, if you have it in a bank, my advice to you is to get it out. It's to get it out. I told you in a prior video, you got 6 months. You got 6 months. Now, the United States is going to go through another economic collapse. That's going to happen. That's going to happen. I have to do that. I have to do that. It's going to go through an economic crisis. This one is going to be worse than the Depression of 1929. This is going to be hellaciously worse. And I'm warning you now, whatever you can do to get your hands on food, water, my advice to you is to begin stacking and storing now. Because this is what's going to happen. Since they passed that ruling, when the economic, they'll refer to it as an economic downturn. When it hits, people are going to quite naturally flock to the banks to get their money out. Well, it'll be at that point that they will learn that not only are the bank doors locked, but after myriad phone calls to the bank, people will be told that they can't get their money out and their money belongs to the bank. Now that's true. You don't own any money because there's no money here. All of that paper that you shove across the counter to a merchant, that's not yours. That is not yours. And the banks, being branch offices of the Federal Reserve System, they got every right to keep it. Now, this, I'm going to steer you to some information which will not only verify what I'm telling you, but you will be able to see for yourself. Because it has happened already down in Florida. Down in Florida, man went to withdraw his savings. Man had over $50,000 or something like that. And the bank refused to give it to him. He went and got the police. And the police got the, the police didn't get anybody involved except his commanders. But the man sued the bank, and he was told by the judge that the bank has every right to keep his money. And he had the look of stark surprise on his face. I understood the look. He actually thought that was his money. After all, he had worked and bent his back for however many years to acquire it, just to learn that now all of that work and expended energy to get to his retirement and enjoy his retirement money, he was working as a slave for free all of those years. Look for that to happen again. If you got money in the bank, I don't know what good it's going to do, but get it out anyway. After a while, during the melee, the commotion and the chaos, you're going to be told to turn over all of your money. Now, I've seen this before. I saw it with the gold certificates and the silver certificates of the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. And I remember anybody who had a gold certificate or a silver certificate had to turn it in. Now, this was 30 years after Prohibition and Pretty Boy Floyd and Ma Barker, and I'm talking about the 1960s. This is 30 years later. And they're still popping up because there were a lot of them in circulation. And so they will do that again. If you have any Federal Reserve notes, they're going to be confiscated. So I really don't know how much good going to the bank to get it all out here, But this is going to be a horrible time for America. And now is the best time to put a stop to this. And young people, we need your help. We need your help. Temple Alhambra is going to meet on the steps of the Museum of Science and Industry at 1 o'clock on Saturday. You need to be there. You really need to be there. Because you who arrive at the meeting and who go with us downtown, you will be the spokesman for your generation. Because you will be the ones that people see. Young people who are actually interested in something other than Game Boy and their cell phones. Because this is the world that they want. And in order for anything to change, you have to make a radical departure from the cycle. You have to make a radical departure from the cycle. Because you're in a cycle right now. You were put there. Your birther was put there. Her birther was put there. You all put there. And again, I don't care what color your skin is. Because unless you've spoken to some of your amalgamated Moorish nieces and nephews, you don't know how bad they got. A lot of them are living under worse conditions than you. I know it's hard to believe because you've been listening to people like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. White is bad, black is good. And I've been teaching you that there are no such people in the family of man. And if you've been paying attention, then what you have noticed is how Al Sharpton and Messy Jackson continue the race baiting. Because that is how they make their living. That's how they make their living. Playing the race card. Keeping racism going. And there's no such thing. But because that is what they called it when they knew it, you see, they are past their time. And neither one of them ever had a prime. They are simply past their time. No one needs to see them anymore. No one needs to see Messy Jackson anymore. Nobody needs to see Al Sharpton anymore. For what? For what? Both of them are supposed to be men of God. and the hate they preach, well, I don't even need to wonder about what God they serve. His name was Julius Caesar, a.k.a. Jesus the Christ. And of course, they are acting just like they did in Rome. So I guess when flying under Roman colors, you do what they do in Rome, right? And so that's what these two individuals, that's what they do. You young people don't have time for that nonsense, because that's nonsense. And I also would advise you not to listen to them when they get in front of television cameras and start talking about that black-white mess, because they're the ones making the mess. And we here at Princeanaelbey, we have several jobs to do, and one of them is uniting the whole of Asia. That's one of them. And you can hardly unite anything while you preach hatred and divisiveness to everybody. The only thing you're going to unite are people who unite against you. People who unite against you. Because you have nothing productive to say or to add to the uplifting of humanity. Either one of them. And so my advice to you young people is, you do not listen to these fake preachers. You see, I don't know much about their God. The only thing I know is their God doesn't have a name. And every other Muslim culture on the face of earth, their gods have names. That Christian God, he doesn't have a name. So I don't know the God they serve. What I do know is he has no saving power. He has no healing power. And obviously, the God they worship is the God of war. Because everything that comes out of both men's mouths incite discord. How does that translate into love? And so my advice to you is, you do not listen to these old has-beens from the 1950s. You do not listen to them. They have nothing constructive to add to your scholarship. Nothing. They have absolutely nothing to add to your character. And so what I want you to do is demonstrate your character by showing up on Saturday and being with us on Friday. That will take character, because that will demonstrate character. And the ongoing campaign for Princeanaelbey is to change the character of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Well, I have told people in other videos, well, no. At any rate, you young people, simply understand you are needed and you are loved. Regardless as to what the world has shown you, you are loved. You are loved. Trust me when I tell you, I'm here. That's one way you can tell that you are loved, because I'm here. And I come here with something for you. The only thing that I cannot do is your work. I cannot do the work for you. And with what's coming, I cannot interfere. I have to sit back and watch. I cannot interfere. But I can help you. I can help you. And this is what I choose to do. You see, because I have free will too. Nobody died last week, did they? I have free will too. Not one person died. Not a piece of stucco had a crack in it. It's my will. And I would truly be proud of you young people if you were to show up and band together with us Americans of all hues and stripes, because we're Americans. We're not Asiatic Americans or white Americans. We're Americans, period. Period. We are a nation of people. For the Asiatics, we are many nations of people. But we're still one America. Even with the different nations, we are still one. U.S.A. That is still who we are. And right now, the United States has something that we need. It has taken it and it has hidden it. And we need to make them bring it out. We need to make them bring it out. Produce the organic constitution for the United States. To my young people, I need you to understand more than anything else. Your life is important. And the people who are controlling it, they don't feel that it's important at all. You've got to show them differently. And remember, your will to live must be stronger than someone else's desire to see you otherwise. You young people have got work to do. When you show up Saturday, I'll tell you all about it, and I'll demonstrate to you how you can get started. Because the Moorish Science Temple of America is once again going to establish a political base. We're going to reestablish a political base, which is in big part the main reason that its character must change. Nobody wants to deal with the garbage that these Moors left. Like the bad taste in people's mouths when they say the words MST of A. Different place. We ain't them, and this ain't that. So we are going to begin our political base and our entry into politics, considering as the de jure government and living successor to one of the prime contracting parties. I am empowered to enforce that treaty. I'm empowered to enforce that treaty. So, while we make them surrender the Constitution for the United States, there's something that I need for you young people to begin doing, and I will share that with you on Saturday. You will have to change the way you think about a whole lot of stuff. But it means your salvation. And so it actually means life to you. Begin thinking, and please begin communicating with one another. It is not that difficult. The only thing that will be difficult about it is some of the responses that you will get from some of these damaged ass girls out here, because they're not women. They were never trained to womanhood, and so they know nothing about it. But that's another video. In the meantime, you young people, you think about what I have shared with you. You see, everything has its origins somewhere. And that is because nothing exists in a vacuum. And I need you to know that.